welcome to Unlocking Freedom in Nature and Art today. So I am so excited to welcome my new friend, Starley Murray.
Hey, Tammy, such a pleasure to be here. I love your show and you.
Well, thank you. It's exciting. And we have a mutual friend, Heather, that
Yes.
got us together, right?
Yeah, she's such a heart-centered, selfless connector of spirits in this world.
She is. And I've been trying to get her actually on the show as well.
Oh, really?
But
Thanks for
yeah.
telling me now. Then we'll give that extra little bit of love pressure. I know she's behind the scenes launching some things right now, but yeah, I'll do that that friend, love pressure there too.
I love it. Even if she comes on with you as well.
Oh.
But but anyway, I am so excited to have you. And Starly, right now you're a dream life designer, television guest expert, and a producer. And you're help for high performance leaders in health, wellness, and personal development, right?
Yes, ma'am. Well said. And for like yourself, those of us who have more than one talent can have more than one title. And before you and I even got on this live stream, we were talking about the value of having that, personal identity, almost kind of like an umbrella brand, and then but having all these great verticals of, either businesses or books or sales of products or you know retreats or whatever. But I love the fact that we talked about protecting that authenticity of your main identity. It was
Yeah.
beautiful.
All right. Well, so for our guests that are watching, can you tell them where you're coming from?
Well, yes, I can. Let me tell you some more leaked information behind the scenes from our voicemail from last night. I had said I was so excited about doing this show for a number of reasons. One, because I love doing these shows where I know and respect the hosts and really get their audience, like that where their tribe or they're my people too. So it's just such a thrill and an honor to be able to be in front of everybody. And the other thing I was saying as I was so excited about being able to share this part of my life that I've never been on record for. I've never really done a deep dive about art, nor have I ever made the statement with a follow through interview of how I believe art saved my life. And so there's this backstory that a lot of people know my backstory of how my career started, but not a lot of people know the backstory about how art not only started it, but has been intertwined and helpful in bigger ways than I could have even imagined. So a lot of us look at as art as our guilty pleasure, or the phrase I hated hearing growing up was starving artist, and I was
Oh,
like, and I thought, well, I love art, and we grew up, kind of poor in a rich neighborhood, and where we were all hustled, to get food on the table, and my
right.
mom especially, and I thought, well, we're already hungry sometimes. I don't want to go into a career with the title starving in front of it. And so it made me think, well, what kind of art should I do that monetizes and that still fills my heart with joy? And so that began at a very young age. So the
So I'm gonna
yeah,
stop you for a second. So did you grow up in Texas?
oh yes, I grew up in San Antonio, Texas, and for most of a 3 decade career, there was a huge amount of travel. But San Antonio has always been my home. I've always, this is where mom has been for my majority of my life, and my brother and my husband. So San Antonio, Texas, has, got a big piece of my heart here.
Awesome. And so did you, so I wanted to hear a little bit about your childhood, your
Yeah,
youth, because a lot of times when we find out, see the youth side,
yeah.
that's when you even start noticing things and when you reflect back.
Yeah, well, this is where so I was like, oh, we grew up poor in a rich neighborhood, so and I gave the food comment, but then I'm gonna have to tell you, mom made sure to get me that color box, the one with the sharpener in the back, and it didn't have one green, it had three greens. And it didn't have, you know, one blue, it had three blues. I mean, oh, I was just so excited for that big box. And then on top of that, it had metallics, silver, gold, and copper, and you had a sharpener to keep you going all day. So I'm gonna tell you that might have started off with crayons, and then it went to Conte crayons, and then pen and ink and pointillism and a little bit of acrylics and oils. But the time that I spent with art in my childhood is what helped me immensely deal with what I was going through in my childhood. So I grew up with a superhero mom that, you know, had two, sometimes three jobs, and she was doing her very best to get us away from a very scary relationship with our dad. And so there was domestic violence in the house, and there was this ongoing kind of you know, fear and you know, for myself, you know, it was a combination of I want to be a hero and help, but then I noticed that being seen and heard gets in the way and makes things worse. So it was a lot of mixed messages growing up. And so where I could work things out was on paper and on, we couldn't afford canvas. So there was, I would draw on the back of like lunch bags or
You know
yeah,
what's so funny is I used to draw on the back of the bags from the grocery bags, you know, from like
yeah.
Safeway and stuff.
I drew on
You,
the back of everything. One time
right?
I got in trouble too.
And when I'd babysit and I'd give, you know, I was like, okay, I can get afford some charcoal or new
Ooh,
pencils or color crayon, like you said, color crayons.
fancy.
But it's like when you look back, I realized drawing and
Yeah,
the art, you know, whether even just creating.
yeah,
My grandmother actually had always encouraged me to do a lot of creating and with the art.
yeah.
But you realize how much it helped you get through things that you didn't, that you needed help with. That
Oh,
it was how we
absolutely.
dealt with anxiety. It was how we dealt with stress.
Oh, yeah.
That people don't realize that these are the little secrets that if you learn to use these, it helps you throughout life.
Yeah. Well, the how I dealt with that on the paper, like you're talking about, or the whatever kind of medium you had to draw on, was when I first was doing it, it was it's a keep your mind busy outlet because you can't change your surroundings. You're a child, you can't change
Right.
things. But then when I started to notice what I was drawing, you know, and I like to draw faces and I love to draw eyes, but then I noticed, you know, like, have you ever looked in a mirror and you can't really tell, like, yeah, I don't know about this, my hair or my clothes or what, you know, it's hard, but if you see a photo of yourself, you're like, oh, I didn't realize my hair was that short or that my bangs were this tall or, you know, or whatever. And so when I started drawing, I realized that I was drawing things that were sad. And I thought it was more pronounced for me to
Oh,
see
wow.
it when I didn't realize, like I had my feelings, but I didn't realize what my feelings were. And then when I saw my feelings on canvas or paper, paper bag, whatever, I looked at it and I went, this is sad. And I mean, I get it.
But at least you realized that, you know,
I
it's
get
like,
it. And I didn't like it. And I was like, you know, I'm not gonna, I mean, I'm a child at this time, single digit age. So I'm not using the same epiphanies, you know, that I do at an adult age. But in my mind, I was thinking, I'm not gonna let this environment define me. And I don't know the exact words I was thinking as a child, but I was thinking, like, I want to draw something happier. And so I started drawing some happier things. And then as I was drawing these happier faces, I was like, oh, you know, it really was almost like a, you know, it was like just a training wheel to help me recognize my moods. And and then I got a little bit assertive. I mean, I was raised by, you know, a single mom, you know, serial entrepreneur. So all of a sudden I started drawing out like what I wanted my life to look like and be like. And it wasn't like your fancy,
it was being positive, right? And
well,
it's
it was
in a
escape
way because you
slash
were
growth.
right, but you were trying to find the good. It's like when I was drawing trees and nature because that was my happy place was being outside.
Oh, me too.
So that's why I drew so much or created so much. And as you can tell, nature is my happy place.
Really? I
And I bring
hadn't
the art
noticed.
in, nature in. So,
Well,
yes.
I bet, like exactly what you're saying, though, that even the nature that I was drawing early on, it was dimmer colors, darker, and things got brighter. But it really was so, I was no Einstein as the single, digit child, but I wanted something happier. So I started drawing something happier. Then I realized that these were like some sort of like maybe a plan. And I didn't understand architectural plans or vision boards that adults use, or I didn't understand any of that. It was very, very, you know, uh, just emotional. I was like, I want something happier. And I was like, you know what? I want a house that's like this. And it wasn't, I never drew things that were like, I want a fancy car or a big diamond ring, or those things were not of value. What was valuable to me was happiness and security, safe, and people who were loving and kind to each other. So everyone was happy. It was like this little, little fairy tale kind of stuff. And
You
then
want
as
to make everyone happy.
I definitely was never the only person in the picture. So you're right. You wanted to make everyone happy. So there was that tiny bit of people pleasing, but really it was more of a loving architect of how can we how can life be better? I remember, Tammy, my age range didn't have the internet and AI and a ton of access to, I didn't even have that much access to get to the library, and we didn't have a lot of books at home. So guess what I was generating from? Mostly creativity, mostly
Right.
creativity. Because what did I have to look at? A home that wasn't anything like those pictures, except from the love of a mom and a brother, but the home itself had a lot of challenges and a lot of scariness. And then I didn't, confide in teachers or anything like that. So I wasn't getting that mentoring or guidance. So where did this imagination come from? So it's a little piece of a friend, a little piece of a neighborhood, a little piece of a loved one, a little piece of movies, and you just
I
had to use your
totally,
imagination.
yeah, I totally get it because it's like we had moved when I was like 9, and so we were like 600 miles. I think it's 600. It's 500, 600 miles, a
Yep.
long ways from my grandparents,
Yep.
and it was snail mail, right?
Oh,
Yeah. So,
I
and I
remember.
was lucky to receive the letter. A lot of times the letters were confiscated, so
Yep.
my family life was different, so I totally get it.
Yep. And
And just so you know, I am petting one of my newest kitties.
oh, Kitty Bear
We
would be
just
so jealous. She's napping
she
right now. Oh, she wants
she
to
thinks
see your
she's
kitty.
helping. This is
Oh.
ZB.
Yes, my kitty helps all the time. She cleans the webcam with her tail and her face.
That's so sweet. It's amazing how kitties like to help us, right?
Yeah, I think she's trying to knock the webcam away so she could just have meat all to herself, but I'm gonna go with the positive description, that
She wants to be the star.
she just wants mommy's attention. So,
Oh.
and you know
Uh,
what? And that's what a lot of us were, looking for growing up, is like we wanted to be seen and we wanted, that attention, but most of us not in a I want to be the star of the show thing. We just want to be the star of the heart of the person that we loved.
Oh,
And
well said. So, because that is
yeah.
so true. Because all you do, every child out there, no matter what they're going through at home, just wants to be loved
Oh,
by their
absolutely.
parents. And then a lot of times what you see is they're always trying to prove themselves,
Yep.
prove that they're good enough, right?
I hear you.
And it's like kind of like the starving artist. Believe me, phrase I heard, and I was like, why does any artist have to be starving? Because it's a talent, it's a
Yeah.
work. It takes a lot of time to
Yeah.
create. And so to me, artists should be paid well.
Oh, absolutely. And now, if I had your talent as an artist, then I'd be making that claim about my own art. But I noticed that my art was more the art that just I loved, and uh, I would get some nice comments from time to time, but it was mostly for me. But Tammy, a lot of us do art in different ways.
I was
And
going to say that you're doing art in a totally different way. And that's what people forget. It's not just visual, like I do behind me, it's not just a painting and it's not just visual, but there's artists out there that are performers, right?
well,
Or do
yeah,
behind the scenes with all the video work.
yep,
It's there's a lot of work to it. And it's
yep,
it's not just talent, but it's practice,
yep.
it's learning different techniques. And I have learned I am a self-taught artist, right? But I've learned from all my mistakes. And I'm always learning. I'm
Oh,
always, I don't know about you, but I learn something new every single
oh
day.
yeah. I always say that every mentor is a full-time student, and that's why I am always, investing in so much education and mentors and that kind of thing. And I love the fact that you're constantly tweaking your art. And, for me, I think my tweak between the growth of art in my life was art saved my life. Then I learned how to use art to help design my life. And then I'm in that stage of my life right now where it's like I show people how I, did that because a lot of people are trying to figure out how to design their lives in a way where they can enjoy their art, not be a starving artist, design their lives to where they don't turn into just an AI number out there. And so that's why I really do enjoy this deeper dive of personal, identity and helping artists and leaders feel seen and heard, but not just by everyone, their tribe. And the challenge is, have you ever had this with art where like when I was younger, I was like, I'm going to mix the oils, the oil paints and the acrylic paints together because I just, I had limited art supplies and I just tried everything. Well, Tammy, you can talk about how easy it is to blend oil and acrylics together. And so that has a lot to do with people who are this is what I'm driven to do for my passion, right? These are my philosophies and my art and my core values. And this is what I'm going to sell in this world so I can make a living, so I can afford art supplies and food, right? And so what happens is one's acrylic and one's oils. People come to me all the time and they're like, I think my art maybe is not good, or I know that's not true, and this would just kill me to give up my art. And then they're like, yeah, but the money part, it's like I feel like I'm selling my soul, and this is not me when I'm selling or when I'm in front of a camera. It's not that these are wrong, these just don't match. I need to, this is where we help people do all acrylics or all oils, but you can do both. Like you sell your art, and that's a monetization. There's a lot of people that aren't to the point where they can sell their art, and that's a deep dive thing that you would teach. What I'm, proud about is that people don't have to sell their soul or lose their authenticity in order to make a living, because you and I don't like that starving artist thing,
No, we don't. So I'm going to say hi real quick to Heather and to Trish.
Heather.
Um, and I know there's more
Hi, Trish.
people watching. It's just we don't always see them on here.
I don't see them, but I'm going to throw out big hearts.
Awesome. And what you're talking about, like with the starving artists. So I actually started selling art at 14,
Oh,
um,
that's
painting
amazing.
windows and stuff. But you still didn't try. And what's so funny is people today want you to pay the same price that was in the 80s. Okay.
Oh,
That is
yeah.
not right.
Well, I'm sure
Every,
paint is the same cost and the cost of living is the same cost. No.
yeah, but we know it's not. But one of the hardest things is pricing. Impute, is
Yeah.
because you have to realize, hey, I'm unique, finding your style and pricing yourself, because a lot of times, especially artists, don't charge enough because they have in their thought,
Yep.
I'm charging too much. I should be a starving artist. But no,
No, that's so we're
you
gonna
know,
do a circle with that with the line through it. Yeah.
yes, when you can't pay your cost and materials, and some people, until you start, you have to find your own style.
But
And and some people aren't, they have they love art, but they're not an artist.
Here's the thing, Tammy.
They're creative, but it's like find your own niche and then that you can charge for it.
Well, if you find your own tribe, they're happy to pay for it because it's an appreciation for them. It's our happy obsession. And so we'll pay more for things like that. It is astounding which things that I won't even buy, and there are things that I'll buy, but only if they're, at a very low cost. And then there's many other things that I will like, that's where my budget will go. And my budget goes into our happiness for our lifestyle. So it's kind of a lifestyle entrepreneur. So I manage my hours how I want to manage my hours. I design my life. I design my schedule. And the in health, oh my gosh, I have so many health and wellness clients. Let me tell you what a guilty pleasure it is when you take care of an artist or a wellness person, you're learning stuff. So if any work I do with Tammy, I'm gonna osmosis. I'm hoping that when we hang up, that I'm gonna go back and draw on paper better somehow. But you're always just soaking up like the tips and the energy, and it feels really great. But my transition from the childhood home and how do I make a living at this stuff went into the production world. So that was
Could you imagine
television.
not getting paid for production?
100%. I've done over 100 jobs not paid for production. But I will tell you, because a lot of times you earn your way in.
Yes.
Now, did I say that I love not being paid for production? Did I say that I do that now? No, but a lot of this, like that's part the cost of doing an unpaid production is how many people got their training. And so
Right.
that's on the job training. That's basically saying apprentice or internship or something. So not being taken advantage of, but it's actually, instead of going to the production school in my age range, you went to in the trenches school. So that was a free job. So
Oh,
that was worth
that's
that.
so true. Like what you mentioned, there wasn't the schooling the same type. It's like I went to take an art class, an oil painting class. I was
Yeah.
there the first hour and left. I did take things like glass, learning how to do stained glass or
Yeah.
sandblasting, things that
Yeah.
required a little bit more training.
Yeah.
But, and actually, I studied more on 'cause some of the stuff you do,
Yeah.
and my degrees in
Yeah.
fashion and stuff. But it's like you said, it's on the job training. And I never felt right taking pay for something I didn't know.
Yeah. And
Heck,
we don't even have to know it perfect, but we want to
no.
at least, contribute value to the production,
Yes.
to the
Otherwise,
client.
I felt like I should be paying them for the training.
It's true. There's that fine line. So you're either paying for the training with monetization, like a cash, or, some people did some sort of barter to get people going when they were brand new. And remember, barter is great to give you an edge to get started, but barter full time, barter is broke because there's not a cash profit to run there's parts of your life that can't run on barter. And so, and then you got into that, like, hey, I'll do some stuff for free because this is a benefit for me, for my portfolio, for my expertise. I remember doing a few events for free to meet the right decision makers, and
Oh,
ended up getting me into a whole different world. In fact, that's where I got some of my biggest clients. In fact, that's where one of my big breakthrough stories came from, was working out on a production where everything went wrong. It was super crazy and it was unpaid. Some people left. And I decided, like, hey, this is my standard. I'm just going to stay here, and I don't want this. I don't want to judge myself this way. I'm just going to go ahead and do it. Like 17-hour day, no water, 101-degree weather, this kind of stuff. And when it was all said and done, I forget, it was a few weeks or months later, I got a call from America's Most Wanted. And I ended up starting off with them as an artist, went to a production coordinator, and then became a national field producer for a national show. And 100%, Tammy, 100%. It came from doing a free job showing the best of what you could do. And I didn't think anyone noticed. I didn't think anyone was watching. I
but
had
they
no
were.
idea there were
It's
contacts there. I didn't know. I just was like,
it shows your integrity though, and that's what I love. It's kind of like when I was modeling and stuff many, many, many years ago. It was like you had to dress the part. I couldn't be
Mhm.
caught in tennis shoes,
Yep.
or pants with holes in it. I had to look like a model in public unless I was hiking, or
Yep.
just doing sports or something,
Right.
because I was representing the company, the
Yep.
agency. Or like when I've done shows, I'm like you. I don't care if people are packing up or whatever. I'm there to present myself and I'm going to stay till the end because that's what I agreed to. If I say I'm going to do something,
There you go.
you follow through. Do not, unless you're getting, knives thrown at you or something weird, you stay, right?
Yeah, get out that charcuterie board. Yeah. But sometimes you need it. But the thing you didn't say, which is I know true, you didn't just do it, and I didn't just do it that one time, and then you have like that story about how there was the reward. This is what a lot of people, if they haven't been out in the trenches, and so for me, I've done over 3,000 profitable productions on top of all the freebies
Right.
over a 30-year period, working not the entire 3 decades, but most of that at 80 to 100 hours a week. And in the beginning, I did it because I was in scarcity mode and I wanted to earn money and try to take care of my mom and wanted to be the hero and all of this. And then, later it's like, oh, I really need the money. And then, like, oh, wait, I need the money to grow the business. And then at some point I was like, I love this so much, I can't stop. What am I going to do? I need to try to, this is almost hurting my health, a little later in life,
Right.
because I was, what I grew up with, doing an 80 to 100-hour week in a paid profession, that was nothing. People
Right.
wondered where my drive and will came from. Like, to me, that was a cakewalk. I'm like, you don't understand. I love this. I'm grateful. But definitely, yeah, towards the end, I was like, I need to do some redesign. Like you said, I have to go back and tweak. I need to do some redesign on my life because my mind says, yeah, 80 to 100 hours is great. But my body is saying, like, yo, we would like to have some sleep once in a while. And your family here would like to see you a little bit more often. Let's kind of,
Right.
curb this, multiple continent jumping situation. So,
So I'm going to throw this out there because I have a feeling we're going to have a lot of guests asking themselves, how much is too much volunteering? Because I know that whenever I've taken on or trade, how much is too much
right.
trade
Okay.
is better to phrase this question. Because I know in my experience, when I do a trade or I've done fashion shows for free, like you
Yep.
said, or I've done trade, I always make sure that I can live with it.
Yeah.
I'm learning something, I'm networking,
Yep.
I'm I'm getting something as much as I'm giving. Does
Yeah.
that, so it's almost a 50-50 because you have to look at the positive things, what you're gaining from that, what
Okay.
you're learning. And if I do a trade, I don't trade with everybody, you want to make sure. So what is something
Yeah.
that you would suggest if they're
Yeah, being the kid that didn't have the formal education or the mentors or any budget whatsoever, who started her career, who now has people who are 7, 8, 9 figure people who come to me for advice. They come to me because I've been in those trenches, and they come to me because I know how to measure value. I don't think I'm just some big fancy pants. I'm someone who listens, I hear them, and you want to deliver on a result. So let's talk about trade and what does that mean with that? Well, first off, the person that you're trading with is crucial. So, and you can call it trade, barter, or a favor. At this stage in my life, I don't even call it trade, or I just say, hey, we're going to do I feel like doing this favor for you, and I know you want this favor for me. So one is the person. Two is full time forever. It's like a marriage that starts to go through all its own funnels of different stuff. So generally, by project, doing something, a single project. So those two things are crucial. And the third is both people really need to get their big win out of it. Secretly in the back of my head, if we've agreed to do some favors for each other, and it's not because it has to be barter, but it's because honoring each other's time. And we are high in demand, lifestyles, and we have family and health placed really high priority. So we really value our time. And especially at this age in our life, we value it even more than people are like, hey, can you want to go have coffee and let me pick your brain for 5 hours at a coffee shop, And I'm
Right.
like, well, I have my own coffee shop in my house and we can Zoom and I can do 5 minutes and, how is this going to better your life and move the needle forward? And have you done your homework first? So the thing is that barter, if I feel like that they're getting something more than what I'm getting, I feel pretty good about that. Um, and you were talking about really specific measurements that I think were important. Did you do it to meet a person? Did you do it to get a piece of education? Did you do it to get like a specific skill set, tactic, a supply, to be at a location? I'll give an example. I've had somebody contact me with a worthy cause. It wasn't necessarily a charitable organization, and they said, "Hey, can you come to Los Angeles and speak in front of our group? And we don't have a budget, but we really want you. What can we do? We're willing to think outside of the box. We're creative people, and we respect your time, but we just don't have a budget." And I said, well, first off, do you guys have like a way to actually fly me there and put me up? And they're like, well, we're not sure. And I said, does anybody have rewards points? I started doing this about 20 years ago, to 20 or 25, and they were like, yeah, actually, we have the reward points. We forgot about that. And I said, okay, great. That's already there. That's a credit. And I kept breaking it down. And then I thought, you know what? Wait a minute. I have a sponsor in that city. And I said, any chance, do you guys have access to like a workshop room, like in the hotel that I'm going to be staying in? And they were like, maybe yeah or no. And it did work out a little deal. And I said, wow, I have a sponsor there. So I think I could teach a workshop. So I ended up monetizing and making money on my own just because I was thinking creatively. And I'm like, well, if I'm going to be away from my family for, 2 days, I want to, try to maximize the experience. So I got to see the lovely environment, put my feet in the sand. I got to meet new people. I was able to speak in front of a group that didn't have a cash budget. I actually made money from one of my sponsors, and I shot like 10 minutes of footage that I ended up using for products back home. So I challenge anybody who's thinking about that trade and that barter not to make it so one dimensional, black and white. So right person, limited amount of time, and be super creative with on what you could both get out of it.
I love that. Thank you so much. It's amazing because, like you said, I agree with everything. But if you look back where we started, could you imagine if we would have had the video and the AI tools and everything that we have now? We didn't have
We didn't have all that.
smartphones,
Yeah, and I wasn't doing multiple faceted like how I just
No.
done to,
But
when I
yeah,
started.
when you were talking about it, I did do multiple things usually because I felt if I'm there, I need to meet as many people as I
Yeah,
networking.
yeah,
You look at ways that you
agreed.
can expand. So,
Well,
all
I
right,
think
we're gonna.
I think my multiples were like accidental fall forward with finesse, and then I got back and was like, there was some good points that came out of that. I was much older in life before I became strategic, planned it, designed it. But yeah, back
Hey,
then,
we learned from our experiences. So you mentioned the red carpet. How you were vacuuming or shampooing carpets first. So I want to take you back. So when were you doing this? The shampooing the carpets.
yeah. Well, so cleaning carpets to working the red carpet is very true. So, my mom and my little brother and I were doing construction cleaning. So, we'd have been really young teens, and we were out there, making money for food. And so while we were doing that, the work ethic, obviously, that I had always, learned about, income and a paycheck and a timeline. And wait a minute, if I do this much work, I'm only going to get this much money, even if I work every hour available. Right. And that's when I started thinking, well, I think you need to think a little bit more, like outside of the box, kind of thing. And the red carpet was never my main aspiration to do. It actually, I was usually aiming at one thing that was, pretty holistic and what I thought was very heart centered. And I had myself at the right place at the right time and was putting out, authentic energy, and people would present these opportunities to me. I never applied to be on the red carpet. My first television appearance, and I've done almost record holder number of lifestyle television appearances. That red carpet, being a correspondent on the carpet, I didn't apply for those originally. Those came to me because I put myself in another situation. So I was actually doing some interviews, volunteer for a another person who worked behind the scenes at the red carpet. And I said, "Hey, I notice you're interviewing all of us at these speaker events, but who's interviewing you?" I said, "I'll be happy. Let's flip it around. I'll interview you." And he's like, "Is that what you do?" And I said, "No, no, I'm mostly on TV. I don't interview as much." So I started interviewing for a whole bunch of series of interviews. He goes, "You're really good at this." He goes, "Let me save you space on the carpet." And then I remember he called back and he goes, "I couldn't get a space for a newbie, but if you want to come out and hold my camera," well, it was on tripods, but he goes,
Right.
"If you want to come out and work the camera," he goes, "you can just stand there and push the button so you can like get an idea." And he goes, "I'll switch with you." So it was the very first time I went. And as you can see, all these went in increments. And Tammy, I think it's so important that our audience knows this, because they think I'm going to do one thing and then all of these rewards are going to happen. So we're getting rewarded for all of the many, many, many things that we do behind the scenes that nobody can see.
Well, you know what? I love what you're talking about here, Starley. And this is what I tell youth, even my grandkids and stuff. And I tell this all the time is you don't get hired based always on your education or
Thank
anything, but
goodness.
you get hired more anymore based on experience, not just experience, but your
Yep.
personality, how you come across.
Yeah.
If you have integrity, if you're kind, it's kind of like I look at before I even have a speaker on.
Yep.
I, s- I do the social search. I search out your Facebook profile. I
Oh,
see what kind of comments you're making. You
oh,
know, I don't want to have somebody on here that I wouldn't be willing to promote,
oh my goodness.
but
I'm searching now what I have online. I don't think I have
I look at
anything
the
bad.
behind the
I'm just
scenes, or I
dorky.
would go and ask questions, or I would ask specific questions to test the person when I would interview
Yep.
people for jobs.
Yeah.
And one of them was the will to find out the willingness to learn.
Yeah.
Because when you find that when people are willing to learn, they have more integrity and how they treat people. I mean, to me, I don't care if you're the janitor or a king or a president or who
Yeah.
you are.
Yeah.
Everyone's treated the same. And I've always done that. And I think that's why I've been asked to do a lot of different things just like you,
Yeah.
because I was, I'll start reflecting, talking to somebody and they're like, you did that, it's like
Yeah.
I was just presented with opportunities because of locations and just because I was friendly or outgoing. And I'm not, and there's times I want to hide and be the introvert. Right? We don't always want to be in front of the camera. It's easy. I'd rather be behind the camera
Yeah.
usually.
Yeah. Well, like my first decade, now like, there was like a lot of overlap, but it kind of it went in three stages. It was behind the camera, so as a crew member, right? So it started off as an artist, makeup artist, set designer, and then producer. And then there was then in front of the camera, so that was on television, stage, and red carpet. So we'll just say that was the next decade, but there was all this weird overlap, really. And then the last stage was doing both and teaching both. So I do just enough of it to, keep educated and, keep in the know, and because things change so fast. But like you, I mean, I love the teaching part, and what you were saying about with the janitor. Well, when I stop and take the time to talk to like my like my wait staff. Like when I've been traveling, I can't tell you how many connections I have around the world that were the waitress, the waiter.
Right.
And I loved giving them like some full on kind of coaching that I would have given someone at a, at a pricey one-to-one session. And so what I loved hearing is that they had nothing to lose at this point, right? So they were willing to tell me any and everything. And what I noticed for even no matter what level that someone's at, that they have a fear of losing credibility by being transparent. So if you're an artist or a leader or an author or something and you give all your heart to camera and this credibility, sometimes you're afraid of losing the actual credibility as a someone who I need to look big or I need to look really well established because there's so much polished almost perfectionism looking out there. Your Some people's Instagram is, we're comparing their best day to our worst day or our everyday. And so what's great for us to know is that first of all, people forgive flaws, not fakes, because we're all flawed. And so it's okay to show your, you know, the little cracks in the armor because that's part of what people can relate to. So their pain is not wanting to share their pain, and art is about that full, full expression. But can you imagine though having art and then throwing it in the trash can? And so
Oh,
this is
I've
what,
been there. I've done it before.
well, like let's say all of it, all your art
No.
goes in the trash can and no one ever sees it. And
Oh, wouldn't that be sad? So,
that's what happens with experts who never get in front of their tribes. So
right. Well,
I say be yourself on camera, just share yourself, share yourself.
so Adriana said
Hey, Adriana.
said respect. I do the same thing when I'm going to meet with someone I don't already know. The legwork is important, and she said her kind of a question here. Sounds like you learn more by doing than by observing.
Yes, ma'am. Woo.
We
Absolutely.
do. And, I was like, okay, I just remembered maybe the reason why I identify with the janitors. I was a janitor when I was 14.
Hello.
I cleaned the courthouse of this little town a couple times a week. I'd go and sweep and mop the floors and
Were you trying to
dust.
compete with me back then? Come on, sister.
It's funny, but but like you said, like Adriana said, we learn by doing, not observing always.
Yeah.
Sometimes observing, we do learn.
Yeah.
It's just a combination, but you can't just observe. You have to go do it as well.
It's okay
Otherwise,
if it's scary too. I love what you're saying and she's saying. Perfect. I agree with both of you. But it's okay, guys, for us to do it if it's a little bit scary. I wasn't my goal to be on the red carpet, but guess one of the things that I got out of it? A lot of people are going to think, well, it's these big name, interviews. I mean, I remember when I interviewed Angelina Jolie's dad, and he was John Voight, and he was made me cry. His interview was just so heartfelt. But the reality is one, I learned how to interview really fast because you only have 60 seconds or 90 seconds to do a full interview. So that was a technical skill that I got, and it was so scary doing it because you had to what, practice on a celebrity? Oh my
right.
gosh, it's okay to do some stuff that's a little bit scary, let's just fail forward with finesse and then have a community that has your back.
Oh, it is. And some of them are the nicest people. So I had used to scout for World Championship of Performing Arts,
Oh yeah.
which was like Search, American
Oh,
Idol, those kind of stuff. I
love
did
it.
that for a couple of years, but one of the things that was required, you cannot have take photos of who you're with.
Oh yeah, I remember all that. Yeah.
Right.
No
And so it's
selfies.
like I would had lunch with like Van Dyke,
Yep.
and all these different famous people, but we were just in the room together and they were just people.
Love him.
And
Yeah.
and that's what people don't realize is they're just like us.
Yeah.
They get up just like we do. It's just their career. And
Yeah.
so we need to remember that we all are valuable, no matter what we do, what our career is.
Yeah.
Just make sure you're doing it with some integrity and kindness. And
Yeah.
like what you're saying is everybody has flaws. And when I'm looking to do my research, I realize that because I'm not perfect at all. I'm doing research because when I see somebody constantly negative, constantly condemning people, and different things like that. It's like, no, yeah, I'm not going to have you on my show because I'm not going to promote somebody that's negative
Yeah.
all the time.
Yeah. Yeah, I know for
Or
sure. Thank goodness you
because
promote
otherwise
people who are
it makes
dorky.
people afraid. I don't want anybody ever afraid to come on my show or be themselves.
100%. And I'm glad that I passed the test because pretty much what you see repetitively with my online presence or just reputation with the majority of the people. Everybody gets caught on their one bad day, and then unfortunately, that's the one first impression you have. My heart always feels so sad for that person I'll never see again. That I had, we just had the bad connection. But I'm gonna just couldn't call it instead of bad. It was a learning connection because it was the fact that I could never get in touch with them again to say I'm sorry that happened or hey, I think that that was a misunderstanding. It made me work so much harder for the regular full-time part of my life to not be perfect, but just be the best version of myself that I could be, that day. And that's the same with the art. Like if you were to, guys, if you were to hold up my art next to Tammy's art, I mean, it would be like, a horsey stick figure and, beautiful, award-winning stuff. Guess which one, Tammy is. So but I still like my art's very personal to me and I love it. And then it's also with, how I help somebody design a life or a career or how I design my events or my home and my lifestyle. So the design part is very important to the individual. And so this is why I just want to, emphasize this to our audiences. I'm so excited that they have a safe and exciting and supportive community like yours because they can be who they want to be and enjoy their creativity, but also you bring on guests that know how to help them, you know, look at these in different verticals or maybe monetize it or here I'm not even doing tactical sales comments. I'm talking about knowing that however you choose to put your gifts out there in the world, if you're favoring them, selling them, sharing them. One, you're proud. Two, and this is my part that I teach, having that alignment with your core values and how people recognize, what you're doing. So I'll have some artists that are, um, you know, I have this great work, but I'm too scared to show it. And or I have this great work, but I really downplayed it when I tried to sell it. I almost apologized for it. Or I had this great art and I felt guilty about taking, money. And then here's the one that's just to me one of the worst though is I had this great art and I showed it to people who are not art lovers. And so therefore I am a failure. I'm like,
Yes.
no, you may have been mistaken on who to show this to. You show it to the, there's,
Well, and you just opened up. Oh, and it's just so people know, when I was actually scouting, some of the prettiest models or the best singers thought they were horrible, and then you had the ones that thought they were great that weren't great
yeah,
to
confidence
take, you know. But
and
I was happy.
humility
I
combo is
tried,
nice.
but I had to be so picky when I was doing that, because people don't realize, like you said, 7 seconds is all it takes for people to know whether they want to approach you or not.
100%.
On a song, when somebody's singing, 15 seconds is all they got.
Yeah,
And
I hear you.
so there are some strict guidelines if you're going that way.
Well,
Okay.
if you're introducing yourself, it's the same thing. So, I'm preaching to the choir with the how artists market themselves. That's a you thing. That's part of what you specialize in. I'm just doing the correlation on that because some of my clients are artists, but many of them are authors and speakers and wellness experts. But it is your art, so
Well,
it's the
it
same
is,
lessons.
and it's kind of like I try to tell people, if you want to charge a high price, you can't dress like a, you know, like a slob, or you're homeless. I mean, you can't dress that way. You have to dress up for the
Well,
client that you want to reach.
well, here's the thing. Just your image shouldn't distract from the thing you're trying to accomplish.
Very,
So,
very true.
so people are very visual, right? And even audio learners, like if they're sighted, they still are going to make certain amount of judgments from their site. So if you're, in your case, you're talking about how you dress. In my case, is how you represent yourself online. I mean, we just got like true on-camera confessionals from Tammy about how she makes sure and she does her due diligence and her homework, and she, checks out her guests, makes sure that everything's very honorable for her audience. Well, if someone were to Google your name or put AI, guys, if right now they were entering just your first and last name into AI or Google, what pops up? So this is part of how you dress. This and especially the further we get in the future, I've not been as pushy about really wanting to make sure that people get out there and you see my face get more serious and my hands go a little faster. It's not just because that's something that I teach, but it's something that the hands of time are moving way faster right now, and I really care. I care very big, and I want to make sure that people get to continue to do the things that they love. So part of that's going to be being super clear on how they describe their identity and their core values and define their tribe, because there's a whole lot lost between doing the great work and getting the great work in front of the right people and knowing how to ethically convert it. And I want to I want to see this community, like, I can't wait to see this community several years from now and check back in. And it's just going to look even more and more
Oh,
different and evolved and so cool.
so, so true. And you've shared so many golden nuggets. I mean, all my guests always share so many golden nuggets. It's like if they go back, they realize you have all these professional coaches on here that you guys share so much. And I absolutely love it. And everybody does different types of art. I mean, I've had art times when you just scribble or paint, and that's what's fun because you can do so many different things in life. And you're a creative
100%.
person, and I bet you are. I know I'm creative even when it comes into my gardening, how I set up my
You should see
my
my
flowers,
fridge.
or my when I'm cooking, serve plate. And then there's times where I don't do anything just because you're in a hurry.
Yeah.
Now my fridge is not perfect.
Well, but but we all like are inspired. So look, I grew up without, sometimes food was a challenge. So if you look inside my refrigerator, you're not going to think that I'm someone who works as many hours as I do. You're going to think, wow, she must have nothing better to do that she wants to organize this fridge. But I prioritized, like, wow, it makes me feel so good that I've worked with all these health and wellness experts and they've taught me this healthy stuff, and I'm going to put it on a pedestal just like you would a piece of art. Right. And so I have
Right.
things in colanders and glass containers. I'm not showing those photos to the world. I mean, I'll put it on your, maybe in your private group,
You
but
have to.
but yeah, I mean, it's nothing that I sell, and it's more my OCD thing, that maybe it's a confessional photo. But the point is we take that art and that joy that we have, and we're celebrating our life in these bits and like these rays of sunshine that come in on a, on a rainy day. So I had, some scary times growing up, but I had so many rays of sunshines coming in and I focused on those. So, I mean, I know this is dorky and silly, but if you look in my fridge, I'm like, oh, look at me and my husband. We do so much to take care of each other's health now. We celebrate it. We don't have stacked a million things in a fridge. Literally, there are like, it's like set up on a pedestal, but it's functional. And I'm a visual person, so that makes me want to eat it instead of like, here's your scale and your 3 micrograms, of robotic, food lifestyle. So, and everyone else is going to do that. They're either going to do it on their color palette, or they're going to do it in their book, or they're going to do it at their live event, or when they, share their life with somebody else. I'm
Well,
excited
I
by
mean,
it.
what's funny is you have yours. I do have my fridge organized, but I like to have my refrigerator full of all the fresh ingredients, especially, I have my gardens. I've been starting
Ooh.
it already. Again, I have my cupboards full of seasoning stuff, but I cook from scratch. I cook gourmet all the time, and I like to have those ingredients available.
Can I say I cook from scratch, but they're got to pick another word that doesn't mean gourmet.
You
Oh,
cook good food, right?
I
Healthy
cook
food.
I cook from like a child would, and then I make it look pretty,
That's
so
awesome.
I mean, I am like achieving like that 10-year-old, goal of like, look at my, I mean, I can't tell you, we don't even use like we actually gifted away a lot of our china and stuff like that we weren't using, but we have one, I have a couple of like
I love that mug. It's pretty.
oh, it's my favorite cup that I
But I see, I have to drink. I usually drink with my Yeti, and you know why? Because I get
because it's
so
effective.
busy, my coffee will go cold if it's in a mug. And I like my coffee at least warm, and this keeps it hot for a good hour or two. So
Girl, my coffee's not going to get neglected. I'm just going to tell you right now. I don't need a Yeti. All right, I've got some adrenaline that needs a little bit of juicing every now and then. No, I'm teasing, but uh, it is nice. I'm not advocating that everybody has to have fancy china to feel good about their food, but I will tell you that when I was growing up, if I had one, like that's the blue plate. Mine's the blue plate, right? If you just have anything that's symbolic to you, and for a lot of us, it's visual. Just so happens that I was able to get my hands on a nice cup. I don't even have the entire set. We have just a few of the plates and the cups because it's like the basic stuff that we use. But I started off for over a year just having this one cup. And I think that whatever symbolic things, habits, anything that we need to do to get us in healthy habits is really great. I had to put, so in my studio, I had to put that, I don't know, can you see it all the way over there? I had to put
yeah.
the full size mirror in there because I was taking that full size mirror and putting it. This is this little studio that I've gotten here. It has basically there was no mirrors on the side of me, and I had no idea that my posture was getting like that.
Oh,
So
oh,
I'm a
I get that.
visual learner, a visual learner. So I saw the mirror and I looked over and I was like, "Who's that hunchback? Oh, I think I'm gonna sit up."
Yeah, instead of looking at the photograph later and you're like going, why was I hunching over? It's like, no.
Coach Marianne would get after me. I have a posture coach that's helped change all my shoulder injury and everything in my life. But I would basically say that I don't know about your entire audience, but for me, any kind of fun, positive visual cue that I can lock into a healthy habit in my life, and if it could be, a cup or a painting, you know, whatever it is, because we need these healthy habits to become like second nature where we don't think about it. And I tried the whole healthy food thing, like with the
Well,
scale and the measuring, and I failed. I failed completely. And then I like did a pretty cup and I did an artwork inside my
hey,
fridge.
if I had to, I have my regular measuring cups. If I had to use a scale, I'd probably flunk. So don't feel bad. I have always used China because my grandmother always said, don't keep anything for a special day because each day is a special day. And
I know.
so I always use nice stuff, unless we're
Yeah.
on a picnic, or something like that. But I had something else I was gonna say. Now my mind just left me.
We were talking about
Oh,
some
but when talking about
symbolism.
art or
Yeah.
stories, it's like when I create a piece of art for a client anymore, it's to tell their story.
Oh, I love you said that. Yes.
Because
Oh,
if the art piece is just for me,
yes.
because I'll just create a lot of times and it has no story.
I love you said that. For artists, for you, for your community, and it relates to the stuff I do. Like you got a lot of times we create things just that we needed, part of our therapy of growing and right. I'm no longer hidden and not visible,
Right.
right? But I told you before we went live that I had one of my strongest, best success stories. One of the girls that I just cherish, I'm really close with, and she's all audio learner teacher, and I was all visual learner teacher, and we worked together for off and on for over 5 years. And but I learned from her because I was not able to, like you said, creating art for yourself and not just for the other person you're creating it for. So I was like, I
Right.
need to learn to be better for people who learn stronger for audio. So your art, I remember hiring a graphic designer one time and he's like, no, I don't want to change any of that. And I'm like, well, you need to be an artist, not a graphic designer, because you're supposed to make stuff that other people can use, not just what you like. But that's a really valuable lesson, and also how I knew that I wasn't talented enough to be like a fine arts. I mean, I'll send you privately Or maybe in your community, I don't know. Oh, it's a couple of little things I did, but nobody make fun of the paper bag or the fact that the art isn't, your community worthy or Tammy worthy, but it's still important to me, and they have been visual cues and things that are
As long,
so
and it's
important.
important to you, it's like that's what matters, at that time. I think one of the best, um, and it's been, gosh, 15, 20 years ago. I went with a friend to a worship conference down in at Saddleback Church. And that's years and years ago. But one of the things they taught was all how to use all the senses when you're reaching
Oh.
out to other people.
Hmm.
And you don't realize how important, the sound
Yeah, yeah,
is, sight, hearing,
yeah.
touch, smell, all of those things, how they combine and help a person to experience what you're trying to share with them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, my mentors and my video team, they are always schooling me on that. It's always a new lesson for me to learn because you you attach it to the visual part that you know, and then later your visual expands and you didn't expand the audio or
I totally get it.
the
I mess up on it all the time. So
I was like, oh, I need to grow the other ones to keep up. I guess it'd be like if you were working out your right arm and you weren't getting the left arm. And
very, very true.
so, oh
So
my gosh.
time has flown. We could talk and talk and talk. We're just going to have you come back.
Oh, show my art or my fridge.
Yeah, both. Well, we'll have to come up with a topic for that. So, but no, it has been wonderful having you on here today. And is there any last words you have for our audience? And I know you'll go back and answer the questions like I
Oh,
will.
sure. Yeah, for sure.
Um,
I will. I will. Um, well, first, I just want to say thank you to you, Tammy, because, not only are you someone I respect and adore, and I've been so excited to learn more and more about you and not just your art, but I didn't realize how many business ventures and verticals you had. I'm so proud of you. I'm so inspired by you. And I'm proud that you trusted me to be in your community because I know you value and adore your community. I'll also say that this is one of the few times that I've ever been given an opportunity to talk about art, and that most people just see that, like, maybe that, hey, I had some challenges growing up, and then there was a whole lot of behind the scenes, like in the trenches, crazy stories, and then there's this huge transition of different career stuff. But nobody realized that the art was connected for me all the entire time. It not only saved my life, it continued to help me design my life. It's never left. It's always been there. It's been some of the best part of my life, and that's not what I've been interviewed on. So you're one of the few people that's given me that opportunity to share that side of my heart, and I have such a deep connection with it and the community that most people have never known. So thank you for that, and I look forward to studying your stuff more and maybe going out to one of your events. I'm excited. I can't wait to learn more about you and your community.
so, well, thank you so much for being here. I appreciate you more than you know. So, and you were an easy choice. So,
Oh,
you just have so much integrity, and Heather spoke so highly of you. So,
oh,
and I appreciate you. And I love hearing the behind the scenes, the stories that people don't hear, because every in that every speaker you can go and you have to preach and say, like, oh, this is what I do. But sometimes we want to hear, how did you get there?
well,
I like to hear different stories.
well,
So and
maybe
that's what this is, because and
maybe
it's
next
about,
time more behind the scenes.
right, using art and nature and use that creativeness, how it can help with anxiety, stress, pain, the different challenges that we're going through, and having that positive mindset. That's kind of a quote we have: inhale positivity, exhale possibilities, or exhale creativity. I have used that for years, which
Love it.
actually was designed by one of Ashley Black's assistants. when I was doing a show for her. She came up with that, and I was like, can I use that? Because it fits perfectly. Because if we don't have the right attitude, we don't help anybody else. We don't listen well. It's kind of like if you go to the grocery store, and I'm sure you're the same with the waitresses and waiters as well. You can just tell by the way they say somebody says something just by listening, or observing. And if I see somebody treating somebody really bad, I'll as soon as they leave, like the cashier, I'm like, I'm sorry they were that way. Um, and I try to stir a conversation so that they can get. And by the end of that, them checking me out, they're usually laughing.
Yeah. But
Yeah.
those moments you did for Tammy, oftentimes they're touching their lives better than you might even realize, because that might have been just the straw that broke the camel's back for that day. It might have just been that I have to go to this job. I need to be accountable and take care of my family. And it's some days it's you just dying for that little piece of love or positive energy or validation. And people take the time to complain, but people don't always take the time to give the compliments, especially the ones that are the well deserved. And here's a little known secret about me. I've never said this out loud, but the um, for every single customer service call that I've been on, and I don't care how busy I am, like I'm on back-to-back calls just like you. We have really full schedules, really full schedules. But every single customer service call I'm on, I ask for the supervisor and I give compliments about what I got out of it. And they're almost in tears because I said, I understand people take the time to complain, and that, but they don't always take the time, and I said, are you guys going to get some points or something, or can I do anything to help? And 50% of the time they'll say, no, we don't, but you made our day. And they don't want to hang up. But yeah, that little, that love that you guys put into your art and your business and what Tammy's doing, like talking to the cashiers, that goes such a long way. Look what Heather, has done for you and I. She put us into contact together. I call her Angel Face. And, that goes a long way. I now have, a Tammy friend, and we got to share some love to the audience. And, I always say, whether it's in, on a podcast show or in a penthouse, it's a community. And you've really established a beautiful community here. So congratulations to you, Tammy.
Thank you. I appreciate it. So, and with that note, we're going to have to say goodbye. So, thanks everyone for watching. We appreciate each and every one. Be sure to check out my website, unlockingfreedominnature.com. I'm always working on it. So, if something doesn't look updated, it will be soon. But also, you can follow our podcast there as well. And I'll be sharing the YouTube link for the podcast here this week also. So make sure you get time out there to go and create, or get out in nature and go for a walk. So thank you so much. And also, thanks, Trish, for sharing your positive quotes on here. I really love it when people share their photos or positive quotes on our site for the community. Thank you for doing that. I appreciate it. Everyone has a great week. Thank you. Thanks, Starley. Appreciate you.
Thank
Bye.
you,